Good evening, Avram.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
All right, all right. Uh, one sec. So, well, we could talk about any of a number of things. Let's see. There was Commutex this week.
Indeed, there
Uh,
was.
so, you know what? That's great because Computex was full of fun, cool, nice, and uplifting things. Uh, Ins- Instead of talking about how Google is planning to eliminate all of our jobs to get itself a few more clicks, uh, which is a very strong possibility given what they're doing now. But you know,
Yeah.
could focus on the good, the good stuff.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
All right. So, there we go. All right. The fourth article will be up later tonight, but it's the writer's strike.
Oy. Oh, put on my new badge.
Nice.
See if you can see it. Ooh, it's so bright on the
It is.
thing that you
It is
can't
bright.
see. Can I turn the brightness down? Does it look better?
Oh,
Hard
yeah,
to
there you go.
tell.
It was better. Tip it at like a 25, 35-degree angle off the camera. Yeah, Avram
There
Piltch.
we
There's a
go.
picture, a QR code. It probably says
Yeah,
Tom's
there you
Hardware at
go.
the top.
Yes, yes.
Orange black
So
background.
it's a red
Nice.
background.
Okay.
And here's one that's like an article of ours. So like if you scan the QR code, it takes you to Tom's Hardware.
Sure.
And this one, there's an article about how to use a banana with your Raspberry Pi. And if you scan the QR code over here. It takes you to your
To
to
the
the
article.
article. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
That's
yeah,
fun.
Ah, yeah. I my son and I went to make my family and I went to Maker Fair for a little while yesterday. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna wear this around and see if people notice. A couple of people noticed.
Nice.
Uh,
That's
That was
fun.
cool. I have to figure out a way to make it animated, then it'll be more noticeable
Yeah.
because you have to hit the button to do it now. Whereas if I made it so almost like flashing colors or something, that would be cool.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. One of the things that I have been watching at Strike with our screens in the front window is the anything that has motion, people notice. Anything that is static, they don't care about at all.
Dun dun dun.
So, all right. Let me get off of this. And then over
Oh, the
here.
Gigabyte story.
Indeed.
Oh, I love the Gigabyte story.
I thought you might.
The, the Gigabytes, we reported on this Gigabyte story quite a
I
bit.
after I had it in my queue, your articles started to show up in my feed. So I'm like, yay! This will be this will be good.
Yeah, they have a fix, they say.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I guess I need to go make sure. Oh, good thing I'm looking. I need to get all of the data that I had to shove onto this computer from from mission control when we were having our store or our, our whatever the virus issue. I need to get off of here so I have storage space again. All right, D drive has room for the show. All right. All right, I'm ready if you are. This week, Gigabyte is at your back door. Street Fighter is... Nope, we'll try this again. I don't know what just happened there. Welcome to the live show, everybody. All right. This week, Gigabyte is at your back door. Street Fighter is breaking records. Amazon is paying for privacy. And Hollywood is not breaking the strike. This is episode... Nope. Something has gone wrong in my brain today. This is the first time we've ever had to do a take 3. It's because I don't have anything set up right tonight. Welcome to the live show, everyone. Okay. Let me fix this. What's today? June 4th.
The 4th.
It's episode 648. All right, let's pretend like I've done this before. Take 3. This week, Gigabyte is at your back door. Street Fighter is breaking records. Amazon is paying for privacy. And Hollywood is not breaking the strike. It's Sunday, June 4th, 2023, and this is episode 648 of F5 Live Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through our live stream services, livestream.com, Twitch, or YouTube, where you can join the community and get ad-free episodes of F5 Live, Piltch, and a lot more, or on our website, plugkitslive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are 2 ways that you can do that. The first is, normally, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. Also, let us know what topics are on your mind this week. If you're not able to join us live, that is okay. plugkitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch, Plug Kids Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you'll find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. All right. How are you doing, Avram?
All right. Not bad. So much going on. Such a busy week. I didn't sleep much this week because we'll talk more about it later, but my team, a couple of guys were in Taiwan for the Computex show. I wish I had been able to go, but I was back here. And so when they were on, I was on, and they're 12 hours ahead. So I was working like my regular hours during the day. And then I was also working at night and, helping them out because they would send us, they had to run from one meeting to another. So they'd send me a bunch of pictures and some notes. Like, we saw this is how it was. Here's some pictures. And then I would do a lot of the writing of it to turn to articles. So, so that was quite busy. And then my son and I, my daughter, and my wife, we went to Maker Faire yesterday, and which was cool. We didn't get to spend a ton of time there, but I made this badge to take with me, and maybe I'll just wear it on the train. So this is an electronic badge. It's an LCD screen that's 320 by 240 and powered by an RP2040 chip. And you can make it display anything you can program in MicroPython. So it has like my picture, and it says Avram Piltch, Tom's Hardware, and a QR code if you scan it, you'll go to the website, and then if you hit this button, you'll see like there's a picture from one of our articles, which is about how to use a banana as a touch controller with your Raspberry Pi Pico. And then there's another QR code, like a smaller one down here or whatever, that you can use to go to the article. So I was thinking that's, it would be kind of a cool idea to try and go around and get people to, I don't know, get some awareness of our website. Yeah. Especially when you consider that Google is slowly or not so slowly getting rid of external links on their site, which we could talk about, but we won't talk about right now. which is an existential threat to anybody who publishes on the web, we're all going to have to start walking around wearing we're all going to have to start walking around wearing QR codes just to get anybody to visit our work.
Yeah.
So that because Google may no longer be a source of traffic. So we'll have to see.
It's really interesting. It's kind of I'm looking in my desk to see if I still have one. I don't. There were NFC dots that well, I guess they probably still exist, but we were using them during events like CES a number of years ago because Android devices within range of the dot could receive a notification. And so basically that was our version of this until Google disabled the dots in Android. We used to get, it was wild. Like we'd carry them in our pockets as we'd walk around the show, and then we'd put one in the studio. The last year that we did it, we got like 11,000 click-throughs on the link or something like that.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was wild.
That is awesome. So I don't imagine that 11,000 people are going to go up to me and scan my badge, but it's a thought. I think this might be a little on the small side, for people to see. I mean, I may next time use one of my e-ink displays, which is bigger, but the thing about this is that it's only like $20, so if it got rained on or something, I wouldn't feel as bad.
Right.
Plus it changes pretty fast, whereas the e-ink ones take like a minute to change.
Oh, okay. Well, you could always use the ad screen off the free tellies. I don't know if anybody in the audience has been following that or not. There's a company that's giving out free televisions, but it's got this second screen underneath. My brother and I have both signed up because that bottom screen is such a weird shape. I want it. And I understand there's a whole thing, and I don't care. I'm going to figure out how to bypass all their nonsense, and I'm going to put that bottom screen to use.
Yeah. So it reminds me a lot of People PC.
Yeah.
Or Net Zero. Do you remember there was
except theirs was at the top of the screen, but same concept instead of the bottom. But
yes. Yeah. So
do I remember the weird Net Zero thing with the bar at the top? 100%. That was
yes.
I lived on that thing for a while.
Also, there was
Kmart.
People PC. I think didn't they have something where you could get a free PC or something as long as you had the ads running?
Mm-hmm.
So
and then there was Kmart had the blue light internet service, which was exactly Net Zero. In fact, it was powered by Net Zero, but it was branded for Kmart, which was what? Almost as weird as Microsoft having its own ISP, but
cool.
But fingers crossed. Like while the music was running for the live show, before you jumped on, I opened the app to see where I am in line. I have to have one of these things. The concept is too weird not to. But around here we've been doing a whole lot of content. You spent your week doing double duty, and we've been creating a lot of content around here as well. We've got a bunch of unboxings. I'm looking at cables and adapters over here and lights, and I got twinkly lights and all kinds of stuff coming. Pretty excited about that. But for now, it's time to get down to some news. If you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, it's time to join us over on Twitch or YouTube. You can go to f5live.tv/join us because that's where we're going to be for the rest of the show. But for the rest of you, here we go.
Yeah.
This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. We've spent a lot of time talking about privacy and security over the last couple of years. We've got a couple of topics tonight. One of them involves a part of your computer that, unless you're somebody who spends time inside their computer, like Avram and myself and people around us, you probably don't think a whole lot about. It's the motherboard. It's the thing that all of the components on your computer connect to. If you have a motherboard from Gigabyte, there's a potential problem. A seemingly innocuous feature was included in these boards that when the board powers on, it goes and checks to see if there's firmware updates. If there is, it downloads them, executes the update, updates the board, does another power cycle, and then runs the newly updated firmware. Most of this happens in a speed that you would never notice. It happens in a, behind the scenes. It just looks like the system is posting. And then your system just keeps going. It seems like the startup takes a couple seconds longer than normal, but you're off and running. And it keeps your board up to date, which is something that nobody does. Nobody keeps the firmware on their motherboard up to date, unless you're Avram or myself, probably. Outside.
And even there, it's not necessarily recommended to update it all the time, because
Right.
if there's no, it's usually and if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of situation with motherboard firmware.
Yeah, true. If you're switching processors and you've got to do a firmware update to get access to the new processor or something like that, like you do with AMD sometimes, there's that. But for most of us, most people never even think about it. This is doing it behind the scenes automatically, for better or worse. Now, where's the problem come in? Oh, right. The board is doing a software update outside of all the security stuff that takes place on your computer that prevents viruses and things like that to be on your system, and it just calls out to a website and downloads the thing on the other side and installs it. There's a lot of ways to get in between there, middleman attack, to get between the server and the motherboard and install something else instead. An altered version of the firmware that allows somebody from the outside to take advantage of your computer. In fact, adding a backdoor like this into a motherboard's firmware is Hacker 101. But they usually have to have access to your computer in order to do it. In this case, Gigabyte has given it to them themselves. Now, is the average user going to be under attack by this? Probably not, but the type of people who are, this opens up a big door for. I'm running a Gigabyte motherboard in mission control on one of those machines, and I can't help but wonder if that's where my troubles came from. Because, sometimes my brain goes down the conspiracy theory route. But yeah, you've been following this even closer than I have.
So Gigabyte claims to have a fix as of Thursday.
Okay.
So if you have Gigabyte, if you go to gigabyte.com/motherboard and look for the latest firmware to download for your motherboard, as opposed to letting it download it for you, you should probably do that, because if the firmware was released, say, in this month of June, then it supposedly has a fix. Now, the nature of the fix is not totally detailed here. It says to fortify system security, Gigabyte has implemented stricter security checks during the boot process. During the OS boot process, these measures are designed to detect and prevent any malicious activities. Signature verification. Gigabyte has bolstered the validation process for files downloaded from remote servers. This enhanced verification ensures the integrity and legitimacy of the contents, thwarting any attempts by hackers to insert malicious code. Privilege access limitations. Gigabyte has enabled standard cryptographic verification of remote server certificates. This guarantees that files are exclusively downloaded from servers with valid and trusted certificates.
Okay.
So
now that's a great starting point. I will tell you, proper client server certificating is a huge solution to this problem. But a real pain. I've done it. It's not fun.
So, but why don't they just disable this feature, like the automatic update feature? I mean, you could do it through. I don't know if I totally understand this, but I think it's doing it through the firmware of the motherboard is doing it versus having your Gigabyte app, Gigabyte utility motherboard
Correct.
control panel app do it.
Correct. It's done during post.
So how, like, what I don't get though is how during post does it know the Wi-Fi password? Like if you're on a Wi-Fi network.
So if you're on a Wi-Fi network, it may or may not have any kind of access. It's probably hardwired. Unless
so probably only if you're on Ethernet.
Yeah, unless the Gigabyte app is able to pull the Wi-Fi credentials from Windows and then push it to the firmware. I'm not going to pretend to have any idea, but
that seems odd.
It does. So my guess is it's a hardwire feature. Just a guess.
I mean, I had a Gigabyte motherboard in my last computer, and I did not notice it doing anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Gigabyte software was very annoying because it kept saying that it wanted to download BIOS updates, and then it didn't do it or whatever. But but the I mean, this is something I haven't personally seen, so I don't totally understand how it works. But you can apparently, if you have a Gigabyte motherboard, you can go into the BIOS and disable this.
Okay.
And even with this fix, I think it might be a good idea to go into the BIOS and disable it, because I don't think you want it updating the BIOS without your consent anyway.
Right. In general, I am not a fan of, I hate to use this phrase, but it's the only thing I can come up with, non-consensual updates. I'm not a fan of that. We know there are memes about, Windows doing updates without asking, and then you're in the middle of doing something. It's like, hey, we're going to reboot in 60 seconds. Please no. But yes, the idea of streamlined background stuff for a lot of people is okay for software and things. Like, your browser staying up to date. Sure. Unless there's a very specific reason why you can't let it update. The browser updating the background, I'm generally fine with. Word, maybe, although I'm always afraid that the feature is going to go away in a case like that. But the idea of the software that's actually holding the core of the computer together, because if something goes sideways on the firmware,
your computer could be bricked.
Yeah.
So generally speaking,
you reboot your computer and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. Well, I didn't do anything. No, you didn't do anything. It did something. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Generally speaking, the advice that, contrary, like everybody's always saying, like, make sure you're always updating your software, update your Windows, update your Linux, update your browser, update. But the one thing that I think a lot of professionals say is don't update your BIOS unless you really need, unless somebody gives you a compelling reason to do so. Like, oh, there is a FYI, there is a security hole, update, or now we need support for a new CPU or something like that.
Right.
But if there's not a known problem, usually it's advised not to do that because you don't know. So doing that without even informing you is, I think, a really kind of a violation of trust. Like, you shouldn't, you probably shouldn't do that. I get where they're coming from. Like, hey, we put this work into these BIOS updates. We think people should have them. Maybe we think that they've patched things that are little bugs or whatever, and we don't want to have to do support for whatever bugs are in it. Like, just
Right.
everybody have the latest, which I get. Like, people, this is the same thing with the operating system. Like, they don't want people to be having to have support issues that have already been fixed, but
Right.
they don't know it's fixed. But for the firmware, this is an area that is maybe the most sensitive on your whole computer.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they theoretically have a fix. Um, the fix sounds solid enough to the particular problem we're talking about, and the particular problem we're talking about is this unsecure backdoor. They have essentially put two sniper trained security guards on the back door, which is great. However, I'm still not happy with the idea of an auto updating system firmware. So I'm with you.
Yep.
Even if you've got this update, turn the feature off. If you've got a Gigabyte motherboard, turn this feature off, because like Avram said, it is not advised by anybody to be
Right.
constantly updating the firmware of your motherboard, because it's the most important part of the system, and I've always felt that it's being held together with chewing gum and rubber bands a little bit as it is.
Right.
So tightening those rubber bands for me is not a better solution. So overall, if you can get in there, turn it off, because this is not a win, patch or not. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. Really digging the new music. All right. So we've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks, possibly months, about AI. We're not doing it tonight. At least not in the same way we have been. Let's talk about some good news from the other side of the world.
Yes. AI is too depressing. There's too much bad stuff going on. So let's talk about some good stuff. Although there were some AI things announced at the show, I want to talk mainly about hardware at Computex, the world's coolest trade show. So Computex is back. Those of you who've been following our show for a while remember I used to go to Computex in Taipei every May. And for a couple of years there now, 2020, 2021, and pretty much 2022. I think they had a few people there last year, but we didn't go. It was canceled or dead. But this year, it's back in full force. Now, we could not send all the people that we normally send. So we sent two of my colleagues, Matt and Paul, and I didn't get to go this year, which is now I'm really, really sad because I love to go to Taiwan. And so if we're all still, if Google doesn't drive us out of business by then, I will be going to be wanting to go to Taiwan again next year, no matter what, because I really missed going to the city and going to Taipei and going to the show.
Real windows in your hotel room or not?
Yes, that's true. 1 year I didn't have a real window in my hotel. But if I get to pick the hotel, then I wouldn't pick a hotel like that. But yeah, one year somebody put me up in a hotel that had a fake window, but it took me half a week to figure it out. It was like a window, and there was like a potted plant and some like rocks there, and it seemed like there was a little bit of light coming into the window. So I thought maybe I'm looking out onto like some kind of courtyard that has like a potted plant on it. And it took me a little while to figure out that no, there is no courtyard. It's just a glass box with a potted plant in it and a background or whatever to make it look like this could be that you were looking out onto some like roof courtyard.
In
So,
in your
uh,
defense, you did arrive at a weird time after a very long
yeah,
flight before you figured
yes.
it out.
Well, I mean, I just the other thing is I couldn't imagine someone would do that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I didn't understand. I couldn't like if you're not going to give me a window, just don't give me a window, which is weird enough. But like, you're not giving me a window and then you're faking it. That's just so weird.
I have such very clear memories of the photos that you sent back
Yeah, I
of the
have them
window.
somewhere. I have them somewhere. I don't remember what hotel that was. But I do remember that that hotel had a problem with flies. Like we would go into the buffet or whatever breakfast
Mm,
buffet, and there were a lot of flies. That
not
was
ideal.
crappy. If you go to
Anyway,
Taiwan, go stay. Don't stay there. Stay at the Brother Hotel, which is where I usually stay. It's like $110 a night, which is really good, and they have nice, very clean rooms with windows. Not big rooms, but very clean and nice, centrally located. Not walking distance from the convention center, but like a short cab ride or a short subway ride. And they've got like it's like 7 restaurants in the hotel itself, plus tons of
wow.
restaurants near it, and like really really nice place with a great price. I go there every time. But anyway, unless of course you can stay at the high, unless of course you've got lots of money, in which case stay at the Hyatt, which is the Grand Hyatt, which is right next to the convention center. I stayed there once, but that is usually like 300 or 400 a night. So if you can afford it, though, I'll never stay in as good a hotel as when I stayed at the Hyatt. Oh, that was a thing of beauty. But anyway, let's not talk about the hotels that I didn't get to stay in. Let's talk about the hardware that our folks got to see, because all of us are going to get to see it in the coming months as it comes out. So let me show you some of the cool stuff that was there. This is our list of the best stuff of Computex, but there was a lot of cool stuff that isn't even on the best list. So uh, there were some graphics cards, not no like new chips, but some companies showed off graphics cards. MSI had a 4070 Ti that was extremely slim, which is nice. But perhaps even more interestingly, and did not make the best list because it was a concept, ASUS showed off a 4090 card that had no power connector plug, no power connector plug for a wire on the top. Instead, what it had was a a connector on the bottom where it plugs into the motherboard, and then the motherboard had a special connector on it to give power to the card. Because a really big theme of this year's show that we saw from MSI, and Gigabyte has something, and ASUS has something, is having back-facing ports on motherboards. Are you familiar with that, Scott?
I don't know. When we talk about back facing, what are we talking about?
Let me see. So one of our things on here, Project Zero. I don't know if this is not a good picture, but let me find you a good picture of Project Zero, which is MSI's take on this. ASUS has their own, which I think they call Ape or something like that. Um,
This
but
is this is the trend of essentially eliminating visible wires, right?
yes, it is. So if
Okay.
you look at
Like
so if
Gigabyte's
you
Project Stealth.
yes, Gigabyte's Project Stealth, which we
Okay.
tested out a while back and didn't work very well for us, but the concept is very solid. So this so okay, so here this is a good example of what you would see. So here's a motherboard, and you see that the power connectors for the like ATX power connector and the CPU power connectors,
Oh.
and I think that with the SATA connectors here, I'm not sure. Some other connectors too, maybe the front panel connectors,
Yeah, that's what it looks
um,
like down there, and maybe the
are
like the USB headers for the case.
USB headers, but I don't know. But this one doesn't seem to have a PCIe one for like for your video card, unless this is it. Maybe this is it. Um, Although this would be like your standard 2 8 pin ones. But the idea is this is facing out the back, right? So I don't know if there's a great picture of it here, but it's facing the right side of your case. So in most computer cases these days, there's this visible side here, right, which is where the window is, and then there's the other side, the right side, right. If you're looking front at the looking at the case head on, that is usually just has a like does is not glass. It's like metal or whatever. So there's that whole kind of wall there, and you can do your cable management and run your wires behind that. And now people do run their wires behind there, but they still have to kind of poke them through a hole to get to this, like, the motherboard. But so I guess here they didn't manage to do it with a graphics card because you could still see a wire coming up to the graphics card, right? Um, but anyway, yeah, so that's something that we're seeing from more companies. The case has to support it too. If you wanted the video card to support it, then you need a video card that that supported it, that had some kind of special adapter. But it feels like it's a new trend that we're going to see a lot more of, and there's a decent chance that this just becomes. I mean, it would require a lot of changes, and meanwhile, a lot of people's cases wouldn't work anymore and whatever. So I don't know if this is going to catch on because there's such an issue with backward compatibility. But I think this is something a lot of people would want, because they don't like having the cables visible. So, and I get that it becomes messy. Bad
It's
enough you have the
actually
tubes with the coolant.
it's actually really insane to me that with all this effort put into making attractive looking PCs with Windows, that it's taken this long for the concept.
Yeah, I don't understand why this hasn't happened before. Like, why not? I mean, I guess I guess it is relatively recent that we have these kind of shrouds in the back where people are kind of expected to sort of route their wires under things like this PSU shroud and the shroud in the back and whatever. My last PC build, I was really surprised how, like, the case I had, you just had all this effort into like making sure you hide your ugly wires. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, obviously in the olden days, people didn't care what the inside of their case looked like. You didn't have a window, so who cared? But now with the emphasis on the inside of their case looking nice, um, this I can see that the value of it. Also, you know what? It's probably easier to install too, because if the cord from your power supply is back here, right? Then you probably don't want to have to reach it all around all over and through your radiator coolant tubes and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to just plug it in the back.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to buy extensions
So
for power for this reason.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Power extension, right? Like that's another issue,
I
right?
would say,
I
which was a
mean,
problem
although
for
you can
you
have once.
personally recently.
Yes, yes. I of course I'm still using the power extensions. I just have plugged them out and in again a couple of times, and they seem to be working at the moment. But we will see, because I'm probably going to be doing an upgrade, a major upgrade in a week or two. And so at that point, I'm probably not going to be using these extension cables anymore. I'm probably going to get a new PSU to because I'm going to be upgrading my graphics card to do more AI stuff. Because you need VRAM for some of these AI things. But let's talk about some other things. But that was a big trend. Here's another thing I thought was really cool. literally, figuratively, and literally. Cooler Master had some great stuff. This is called the Master Hub. It is sort of like a build your own Stream Deck type of thing, where there's various pieces, including like a macro keyboard that's not shown in this picture, and like dials and I don't know what you call these, levers and screens that you kind of pop onto these pogo pins and um, make your own like controller for like controlling multimedia if you're a video or audio editor, or doing macro stuff. um, I
Oh,
always like the Elgato Street.
or for my control over here, where I have a Stream Deck that controls the whole show.
Right, so right, for things like that. So what do you think? How does this compare to what you have?
So I would want to mess around with it. I'd love to see how some of these things can be dialed into our system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I control Live Stream Studio with the volume knobs and stuff like that? But,
Mm-hmm.
conceptually, it's really solid. I really like the idea of the screen, especially if I can tie it into Live Stream Studio to get like feedback on what's active, which the right now I can't do with the Stream Deck. So I mean, there's definitely some pretty cool possibilities here. And with editing, having a jog shuttle, I
Yeah,
have a jog
so
shuttle for editing, and it's great. But being able to integrate all this other stuff together with the jog shuttle would be super cool.
yeah, uh, there's one that has like keys, like LED keys, like you can see on on a Stream Deck, and then there's the jog shuttle. There's these like three dials. There's this equalizer thing. There's two sizes of screen, and then there's these like other dial things. So so
Those
kind
look
of
like
interesting.
those look like rollers on like a Logitech
Yes,
keyboard.
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Um, so this monitor, really nice QD OLED, 49-inch, 5K, with an 1800R curve from Asus. Uh, really, really nice colors that you can't tell from just looking at my screen, and me sharing it. Uh, some other great stuff that they had. This is kind of unique for a PC cooler. Sort of looks like a flower almost, where the petals are fans. Um,
That's cool.
I mean, it honestly seems like fan overkill, but I can never say overkill when it comes to computer. Um, this may not be the best picture of this. This is a Lian Li case, and it's glass on three sides. So like the front, the top, and the left side are all clear glass without even like a pillar here. So you can really get a really good look at the inside of your case. So you
That's
better have
nice.
some pretty looking things in there, because you're going to be looking at it quite a bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
like Project Zero or whatever.
yes, except that case, the case has to support it,
Right,
right?
right.
So that's something to keep in mind, because the holes in the back of the motherboard tray or whatever have to line up. So that's not a standard yet, and so I don't think um, you have to get a case specifically to support it, and that may be the downfall of this effort, because what you really need is whoever came up with the idea for ATX and micro ATX and mini ITX to standardize those back connectors. Um, Here is a Cougar chair that has a fan in it, an RGB fan in it. So
Nice.
if you ever wanted to cool off your back, the chair is there for that. Uh, this laptop is an okay Ultrabook, the Swift Edge 16, best notebook we saw introduced at the show. Has OLED screen, Ryzen 7. Uh, nice thing for a decent price of 1,300. This was my favorite thing of the show, because I'm dying to get this. This is Lian Li Unifan TLLCD. These are case fans with screens on them. Um, I really
Oh,
I have a block of other Lian Li Unifans, and they're really fantastic. They look great with the RGB on this area. They snap together, so there's sort of less ugly wiring. Um, and this is sort of takes the same philosophy and then just adds um, these screens which can show either status information like temperature, or they could show an animation or whatever you want. So I love having screens in my computer, and this would be kind of a neat way to have it. It's not going to be that expensive. It's going to be $139 for three of them. Normally, it's $119 for three without this, so not bad. Um, this is kind of another neat way of customizing your stuff. The Corsair Dominator Titanium. These new DDR5 RAM DIMMs have a removable top, and then you can either buy a custom top bar from Corsair to put over it, and the RGB lights, which I think there's like 11 RGB lights here, will shine through, or you can 3D print your own top bar and attach it.
It was
Um,
absolutely my first thought. I'm like, I'm not buying it from anybody. I'm going to design my own. In fact, I'm thinking about now designing one for the RAM that's in the studio PC right now.
Yeah. So this has a specific thing to specifically snap on. Now, what they didn't say is what these were 3D printed out of. The ones that they showed, like would it work with PLA, which is like the mainstream cheap stuff that we use? Do you need like ABS, PETG? What do you need? Because it's going to get a little warm where these are. So you want something that can withstand the heat. Um, and has the look of this. Looks really nice. Like a lot of stuff I've 3D printed doesn't look that nice. Um, so this is a new SSD. There were some PCIe 5 SSDs shown. Um, the actually fastest one was the MSI Spatium Pro 570, which operates at 14 gigabyte per second. But that's not making our best list because it was already shown at CES. Patriot has this, which is 12 gigabyte reads, but it's got a really uniquely thin active cooler with this fan, really, really paper thin. So a really nice use of active cooling. One thing about PCI 5 SSDs, you've got to keep them cool, uh, or they are going to throttle. Speaking of cooling, back to Cooler Master, they had their new X Silent series of power supplies. The 750 watt unit here on the right has no fan at all. So there's no way it's going to make fan noise. And then the one on the left is 1300 watts and has a fan that they claim is so quiet you can't hear it. So makes absolutely no noise. Real focus on quiet from the PSU. Speaking of Gigabyte motherboards, many of you know that Gigabyte is Aorus. Aorus is a Gigabyte's fancy brand. They showed this awesome looking motherboard at the show. It's coming out this fall. It's going to be it's a Z790 motherboard, so it will support Intel 12th and 13th gen, and importantly, the upcoming Raptor Lake refresh, which may be called 14th gen. We don't know yet. That's expected this fall. It has some really neat features that I kind of have to show you other pictures of for you to really see. So one, it's got this full color screen that's over the ports. It's got it comes with this giant heatsink slash fan that goes over the PCIe 5 SSD slot, and then there's a cover for all the PCI slots, and all of these covers are removed just by flicking a dial. There's no tools needed, and underneath it there's three more SSD slots, although those are only Gen 4 slots. And then there's a cable cover on the top to sort of, I guess, cover up some of the cables. And that also is tool-free removed. So you've got like lots of things to cover up, like ugly areas. You've got built-in heat sinks for your SSDs, and you've got a screen, and it has Wi-Fi 7 built in. So everything that you'd want from a motherboard, unless you want one that with back-facing stuff, which I guess this doesn't have because that's a new thing. That you need a case to support it. Speaking of cases, this is one that's been teased for quite a while, and they say it's really coming out this year. The Streacom SG10 fanless case. This case has no fan, uh, has no fans, and the case itself is meant to be the heatsink. So you put some special thermal conducting stuff on your graphics card and on your CPU, and it can dissipate something like 650 watts worth of thermal um, out of the top of the case, which is itself a heatsink. Um, Now, the power supply, maybe if you use, they didn't, I don't think they've addressed that, but maybe if you use the Silent X power supply that we're talking about. Now, you couldn't do this with a 4090, it's too much power and heat. Probably, I think a 4070 would work, and a 13900K perhaps. Oh, they said the build used on display was 13900K and RTX 4080, so pretty close to top of the line. Not the top of the line, but close. Another really cute. This is a cute little case, Fractal Design Tiny Terra. It's kind of wood grain. It's got one little fan, but you could still put, a discrete graphics card in here and a modern CPU. So that's kind of cool. Those were our best of Computex, but we have a lot more if you go to the Tom's Hardware homepage and click Computex, which is on the top bar. Real quick, I'll also show you have an article of the best case mods we saw, which is my favorite part of Computex because they always have all these beautiful case mods around. Several different companies have competitions where they show the contestants. Here's one that looked like a cyberpunk motorcycle. Wow. Here's one that looked like an alien face hugger. Actually, alien egg with a face hugger on top.
Sure.
Here's one that looked like, I like this one, looks like a tower, like kind of a building. There's this one here is supposed to look like the moon, or it's called the moon case. I don't know if I quite get it. This one here looks like a medieval church.
Yeah.
I find that kind of neat. Like the top looks like a stained glass window.
Yeah, I love the top.
Tower of Light case. That's okay. Cybernetic cylinder. This pyramid case, there's more to it than meets the eye, because this case, the case itself isn't the special thing about the mod. It's that it has a pump of liquid nitrogen pumping into it automatically over this white hose. And you can see on the side there's two LN2 tanks. And maybe that's why you see condensation on it. And because it is liquid nitrogen cooled, the CPU, which is a 13900K, is running at 7 gigahertz, and the RAM is running at 10,000 megahertz.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was, I found. See here, you can see a view of the back.
Yeah.
You can see it going. Now, normally, folks, if you're not familiar with extreme overclocking, when extreme overclockers will use liquid nitrogen to get the highest temperatures. The lowest temperatures, they'll go below zero. But they have to put a special little tower on the CPU, and they have to sit there with a container full of liquid nitrogen, and every minute or two pour liquid nitrogen on top of the CPU to keep it cool. They have to sit there by hand, doing it by hand. Whereas here, they're doing it automatically, which I guess means, I don't know how long your liquid nitrogen will last, how those tanks will last, but I guess it means you could sit there and use the computer to play a game or whatever, and not have to sit there pouring liquid nitrogen on it while you work. So
a big enhancement for usability.
Yes. Generally speaking, you wouldn't use, all this liquid nitrogen stuff is just for sort of competitive purposes to see who can get the highest, highest clock speed, because you wouldn't use it to be sitting there browsing the web and doing your everyday computing.
Not with that attitude.
Okay, sorry. I mean, I'd like to. I'd like to. Don't get me wrong, but I think there also is a limitation normally of that. Like, not only would you have to sit there with one hand pouring, or have a servant, I guess, like an assistant, to sit there and help you pour it while you're typing, but inhaling liquid nitrogen is not good for you. So you kind of have to make sure you kept your distance there as well. So again, you don't want to be sitting. Although overclockers sit there and accidentally inhale it, probably. So
true. Long HDMI cable and a wireless keyboard and mouse. We're fine.
there you go. So there's the answer. I mean, yes, you could do it. Yes, you could do it. I don't know, like, how long a tank like that lasts.
Yeah.
Is it a long time? I guess I'd have to ask my friend Splave, who is a world champion overclocker, who I would have seen if I went there because he went to compete. That's not his design. He sits there and just does, manually pours them. But.
Well, definitely a lot of interesting stuff this year, for sure. The case mods I always find interesting. It doesn't matter, where we are or what we're doing. Case mods are always interesting. I've been involved in a couple. I mean, nothing like that. Those were like Hollywood style props,
I mean, and I bet we didn't even get pictures of all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that's fantastic about Computex, and you see this a little bit at CES, but much more at Computex, is they will fly in the builders, the people who built those cases, and you can talk to them. So
that's cool.
They'll be standing around talking about their work and what they made and how they made it, and I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I love to sit there. I love to meet those guys and those folks and talk to them about their cases.
Yeah.
Thermaltake is like the companies that tended to sponsor this are Thermaltake, Cooler Master, and G-Skill. But Thermaltake always has the biggest display because they have twice a year mod contests, and so they bring the winner cases and the winner people to Computex, and that is always the highlight of my visit.
Yeah, I remember when we used to sell Thermaltake at Radio Shack, and we'd always get the press releases internally about the contests and all that stuff. It was fun. I used the old demo case for years as a personal case after we stopped selling it. Oh my goodness. Oh, Thermaltake. I've got Thermaltake Arctic Silver here in the cabinet.
Yep.
Anyway, obviously you've got a lot of stuff. A lot of content about this.
We have dozens of articles, and I wrote a lot of them. So please go visit our website, tomshardware.com. In the top trending bar, you'll see a link that says Computex. Click that, and you can see all of our Computex coverage, including some stuff about NVIDIA's AI announcements, which were kind of exciting in a good way. I could have very easily talked about their AI NPCs in games.
Yeah,
and that would have been an interesting topic.
That was cool.
There was a lot of great stuff at Computex this year. It was definitely more of a PC hardware show than a laptop show. There weren't that many laptops there. Never any phones or tablets or anything like that. But it was, it was a really great fun show, and I hope to get to go next year, as I had previously done for 10 years. It is a great show, and if you ever get the chance to go, you should.
It is definitely on my short list of shows to go to. You have talked so highly of it the entire time I've known you.
Yeah, it makes CES. They should make the people who run CES go to Computex and say, this is how you run a good show, because like everything's easy to find, it's easy to get around, places to get food. I mean, part of it is just the location in Taiwan is a lot less hectic than Vegas, but
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's on my short list. I definitely want to check it out, and I appreciate all this information. I was following along as best I could. There were a couple of links that, while you were talking, I pulled up that I had missed, and I had completely missed the case mods. So I was glad to see that. Yeah. And as always, Avram, I look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Exa. Exa brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/Exa. If you're a fan of fighting games, you know that this week Street Fighter 6 came out. It has been in action here at the office a lot since it came out on Friday. But what's really interesting is it set a record, and it did so within 24 hours, and then, well, actually, like within 9 hours. And during that since that time, it kept resetting the record. So the record is from Steam. Now, a lot of our PC gaming records and statistics come from Steam, A, because it's the largest gaming store for PC these days, and B, because their statistics data is very easily accessible. So there are places like SteamDB that are constantly tracking statistics across the platform, and that's where our record comes from. They had, at 9 a.m. on Friday, June 2nd, there were 66,317 concurrent players playing Street Fighter 6. Now, that's mere hours within the launch of the game. Of course, the first few hours, you're always going to have an influx, especially with a game this anticipated for the fighting game community. Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter are your long-term games, with Smash Brothers being your kind of your next big one in modern, conversation as far as players are concerned. So of course, within the early hours of the launch, it's going to set its own internal record, right? You're going to see high player counts. But that 66,317, it's important to note, is almost double the previous record, which was set at 35,147 by Mortal Kombat 11, and that happened 4 years ago. So during the time of COVID, when people were at home, gameplay was higher, we didn't break this record. It took Street Fighter 6 hitting the market to break it. They broke it by almost double. But it didn't stop there. In the gaming community, it's real easy to put a game aside because, it doesn't live up to hype or whatever. This one, the numbers kept climbing. And in fact, the highest number that we saw was 70,573, which is slightly more than double the previous record. It took 4 years to break that previous record with a new title. The only thing that might do it is this MK1 remake that's in the works. But honestly, I don't know. I mean, this is more than double. That's a big step up. I'm really intrigued to see, if this can hold, right? Can the numbers stay where they have been, right? And if you go look at the chart, there's a link in the article on the website. If you look at the chart, I mean, it's doing like this, but it's living right in that 60K range overall. It dips below sometimes, it spikes above sometimes. I mean, it's staying pretty level. I mean, there's a dip to 48 at 10 a.m. UTC today, so the middle of the night in the West. But I mean, they're getting big numbers consistently from Steam. That's a good sign for the fighting game industry, because there's been so many weird games trying to get into this space, all trying to chip away. Multiverses, and even Nickelodeon's got a weird fighting game type thing. Everybody wants to be in this space, and the core franchise came back and hit it hard. I think that's good for the fighting game industry. What do you think, Avram? Are you talking? I'm not hearing you.
I was going to say, who does Peppa Pig fight in the Nickelodeon game? Can you fight as like the dogs in Paw Patrol? That'd be hilarious.
I don't know. Hold on.
And is it Mortal Kombat?
Every time I talk about Mortal Kombat, I just have to point out that I always preferred the takeoff on it, Mortal Wombat. Continue.
By the way, I have to show you something Computex related that relates directly to this topic, which is this.
Nice.
So, Cooler Master is coming out with a line of Street Fighter 6 components and peripherals.
Yeah.
That they showed. So here's the bigger picture. So they have chairs.
Sure.
They have keyboards. They have AIO coolers, headsets, mice, and cases. And did I miss anything? Oh, power supplies. That's my favorite one.
Sure.
Who would think that you need a power supply that is blue so it reminds you of Luke from the game?
Alante.
Like, most power supplies are not visible these days. They're usually hidden behind a power supply shroud. So what it looks like is kind of immaterial, although some of them have RGB, but if they have RGB, at least that kind of shines up around the floor or something. But I don't know. It's just weird. The one that makes the most sense to me is the case, because at least you have a picture of the character. So yeah. They seem to have 3 or 4 characters that you can get stuff about, themed as. You can get Luke, Chun-Li, Ryu, and Blanca.
Sure.
So that's the. So anyway, yeah, I just thought I just had to mention that there's so much hype around this game that Cooler Master has a whole bunch of IP around it.
Yeah.
I guess the chairs also make some sense.
In fairness, if I'm not mistaken, Cooler Master does a lot of this type of thing.
I can't recall them doing another game themed thing, but maybe forgot. I mean, this sort of thing happens a lot, but I've never seen it before with internal components. I've never seen it. I don't remember ever seeing it before with fans. I mean, maybe
fans is a little pushing it a little bit.
Power supplies.
Yeah, power supplies is definitely pushing it. I've seen video cards, obviously motherboards. I mean, somebody just, I think, came out with a Sonic the Hedgehog motherboard.
Oh, yes. I think that's ASRock, Sonic the Hedgehog motherboard. Although there's nothing else that is Sonic about it. The motherboard looks very Sonic, but you can't I guess you'd have to figure out, okay, I'm going to get a blue fan or whatever to like
Hmm.
match it, because that's the only sonic component that they make.
Yeah.
Um,
This is definitely the biggest collection of products I've ever seen themed to any IP. Uh, Not entirely true. There was an Iron Man everything at CES 2017. Headsets and case and keyboard and all kinds of like a whole
I don't
collection of stuff.
I
A
don't think they
lot.
had a power supply though.
No, certainly not. Um, but I have chair. I have encountered other largely branded peripherals, but this is the furthest I've ever seen anybody push. The idea that that the power supply could be branded, like ish, color coded, color coordinated
Yeah,
is
yeah,
definitely something. I guess if the outside, like where you plug in the power and where the switch is, if
yeah.
that's color coded, okay, maybe.
Eh.
I mean, it would work in an environment like ours at Strike, where the computers are completely out and you can see the power, the
Yeah, I
outside bit
guess
of the
they're
power
counting.
supply. But I mean, it's a very
I
specific
guess
use
they're counting
case.
on that. I guess they're counting on that because most cases these days hide your power supply. I guess
Yeah,
it's considered to be kind of an ugly component, even though I have seen other power supplies that had things on them that you might want to see. Like
yeah,
besides RGB fans, at one point, Cooler Master had one with a screen on the side of the power supply,
yeah. I
and
remember that.
obviously that relies on you to be able to see it. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Did the did the
that's
corresponding PC case have a shroud for the power supply?
I don't think I can tell from our
Okay.
pictures. Good question. It is actually based on a. Oh wait, we can tell this probably because the TD500 mesh V2 case. So that is a standard. Like that case already exists. They didn't like invent any. I should be really clear. They didn't invent any new stuff. They just painted it or whatever
Mm-hmm.
to theme it. The case has been around, the keyboard has been around, the
Sure.
mouse has been around, the power supplies have been around. Oh, it says PSU shroud with removable cover.
Okay.
So you could remove it.
Yeah, I see. I'm looking at a
So
I'm looking at a listing on eBay for the regular case, and I see the removable cover at the bottom.
yeah.
There's
Okay.
a
So you
there's
could
a
do that. You
track that
could
it
sort of
slides
see.
into, so you could pull it out, um, and make the power supply completely visible. So there you go.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Spent your money on your power supply.
Now you can see it.
I love that we have like we've had I just want to admit like people who've reviewed ssds who've made all kinds of commentary about how the ssds look, and I've often thought like there's really not much you can say, like, oh, it's a green pcb, it's boring. um I mean, now that we have heat sinks, maybe the heat sink could look like something, but
Sure.
a lot of times, whether if you were talking about just a standard M2 SSD, or you were talking about a, SATA 2.5-inch SSD, the look of it is there's not much you could do to make it look nice, and
Sure.
there's not much to look at. But
Right.
uh,
I mean, you
so
could
go
you
figure.
could color coordinate it to match your power supply in powder blue or whatever color scheme that
Yeah,
was.
yeah, exactly. So weird. But anyway, yeah,
It's
that was one of the interesting things we saw at Computex, which shows that they expected Street Fighter to be a big deal
yeah.
because they planned this line.
Yeah, true. They knew that it was going to do big things, and in this case, breaking a Steam record, which is pretty impressive. As a note, to answer your question, no Paw Patrol, but Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks can definitely fight Invader Zim. So,
boo. I want to. I want one though where he has a finish where like Marshall the Dalmatian has like a finishing move. Finish him. Anyway.
I obviously am going to have to play this game later, but yeah, everybody must have known how big the game was going to be, and it has proven everybody correct. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. All right. So, staying on our privacy topic for tonight, Amazon received two FTC and DOJ lawsuits this week over privacy across their product line. The first involves Ring, mostly involving before the company purchased Ring in 2018. Their processes changed in 2017, but not all of them. What Ring was doing was they were just storing the videos coming from your security cameras and whatnot on their storage solution, whatever it was, whether it be Amazon or Microsoft or on-prem or whatever they were doing. They were just like storing them. And every employee of Ring at the time and every employee of a contractor in Ukraine that was being used for something had access to every recorded video from every camera for all of Ring's customers. Whether or not having access to that was a part of their job, everybody had access to this data, and everybody could, and apparently did, go through and access videos. Obviously not an ideal situation, but I have long said if you're uploading your videos, your security cam videos to the cloud, there's a lot of potential for danger there. There are even, the live streaming capabilities are easily hijacked. And in fact, there are whole sections of the dark web where people have watched security cameras and clipped, let's just say, significant moments out of particular security cameras. So, if the stuff's out there, the stuff's out there. So it is what it is. But, the idea that, they were a startup and they were trying to save money or whatever, and it created this laziness because all they had to do was encrypt the files, have policies in place that limited access, things like that. This violation is going to cost Amazon just about $6 million. So, $6 million, drop in the bucket for them. The real problem comes from their issues with Alexa. And I apologize for saying her name. I tend to have a policy not to invoke her. I apologize. Anyway, their always-on speaker solution has been collecting data. It records interactions. It uses those recordings theoretically to improve the listening capabilities, the detection capabilities, the voice recognition capabilities, things like that, across your account and across the system as a whole. Problem is, kids use them, and there's a law here in the United States called COPA, and COPA regulates what can and cannot be done with information coming from children. For example, voice recordings and geolocation data, both of which are stored for interactions with the speakers. And that has caused them a ton of problems because that data has been used to train their systems. It has been stored without any real strong capability for parents to be able to delete the recordings, despite the rules of COPA. So this one's going to cost them $25 million. Again, an overall drop in the bucket, but now they're being watched for their policies. There are rules that have to be implemented. There has to be full compliance with COPA, including the ability for parents to delete their children's voice recordings and geolocation data, and a full-on ban, which already exists, but, sometimes you have to specifically call out to certain organizations the rules of law. And in this case, that's what's happened. A complete ban on using any data associated with kids to train any AI systems. So, almost $31 million in fines this week. Both of these settlements are pending judges' approvals, court approvals, and then lots of rules put on top of them. Now, of course, we've had conversations about smart speakers before, and this particular type of privacy leak, Avram. I think we all kind of know your position on them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, my question is, you say that the parents should have the right to have the recordings deleted.
Mm-hmm.
Should they not be collected in the first place?
Yeah. So there's a particular, so long as it's all, there's weird rules. The data can be collected so long as it's not used for certain things. And in this case, holding on to the recordings for certain reasons, I don't remember what they are, they're allowed to hold on to them, but they are not allowed to hold the geodata at all. And I think the indefinite storage of the recordings has to end as well. They're also being required to delete, not suspend or disassociate, but delete inactive kids' accounts as well. But yeah, they are allowed to hold it, but you're right, they shouldn't. But
They shouldn't have kids' accounts at all. But part of the problem is, to be fair to Amazon, right? Like, how do they know what's a kid when anyone in the home could be talking?
so if a child uses a standard account, that falls under it. It all falls under the owner of the account. So like with our speakers, it's able to recognize voices and tune into that particular person's data. And one of the types that you can have is a kid's account. They've got that deal with Disney. Disney, where there's the Mickey Mouse feet thing for the speakers and stuff, and it can talk to them maybe as Mickey Mouse, though with the celebrity voices being discontinued this week, that may not be the case anymore. But it's all like kid friendly. It's like YouTube Kids, right? It's a very streamlined thing for very specific purposes. It's not a full experience like what the adults get. So if a kid uses the adult account, then it is what it is. But theoretically, if you've got the I know whose voice it is, it should be able to go into the kid's account and therefore have rules about recordings and things like that.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, in my house, we're on Google Assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if there's that capability, but we have not set it up. It's all just one account,
Hmm.
uh, which I think is connected to my wife's Google account. So, I mean, not that the kids use the system a lot, but sometimes, they'll tell it to turn on the light or turn on
Sure.
music or whatever, and um, it's doing it. But I remember now this something I'm curious about whether this is implicated in this story. Do you remember a few years ago there was a story about Amazon employees sort of sharing clips around for fun, and they had caught clips of adults like they had all kinds of stuff that like was somewhat kind of illicit. Like they would, catch people having arguments or intimate moments or whatever, and then they'd be
From
like
the
emailing it
speakers.
to each other from the speakers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely remember that. Almost certainly there's something going to be involved in that. Um, in particular, like I imagine that that's going to tie in more on the with what they're up to with Ring, because this particular one was Copa related.
Right.
But they are very clearly doing a deep dive into Amazon's data access and retention policies. There's no way that the speaker access doesn't get wrapped up in this eventually. But this particular thing was about children's privacy violations. But I suspect there's more coming. Because, yeah, I remember all of that. There was the issue where they say they don't record, like, they only record the interactions, a successful interaction with the speaker.
Right.
You say her name, you ask a question, she's able to answer. That they don't just record background noise, but they turned over a recording to the police that caught a murder suspect even though nobody had said her name. So, there's been questions about the way they listen and the way they retain data for quite a while, because that was a couple years ago.
Yeah. 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 I know. It's unfortunate because some people that I live with don't seem to think of this as a potential problem. They're like, well, what do we have to hide?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want some strangers listening to our family conversations or whatever. Like, I don't want that. So no, it doesn't matter if you're committing a crime. I don't want people in my business. So we operate under the assumption that this data is just not going. It's just going into a computer that doesn't a dispassionate computer that doesn't look at it or listen to it.
Right.
But
Because there's
how do
humans.
we know?
There's always humans involved somewhere.
Right. How do we know? And I think in general we have to have much stronger regulation and crackdowns on what companies are doing with data that they collect.
Hmm.
People are very focused on this personal data, which is great, but I think we also should be focused on companies and how they are collecting data from businesses and companies and
Yeah.
even the open internet. Like, I think a lot of these larger companies feel like they're untouchable, and therefore they can take whatever they want and use it to their advantage. You put up some code on GitHub, great. We can use it to create a GitHub Copilot, without your consent,
Yeah.
or paying you for it. You write an article about what the best CPU is. No worries, Google is going to take that without giving you any credit or money. Going to recommend the same CPU and say that they thought of it.
Hmm.
Like, uh, we're living in a time of plagiarism laundering engine. AI AGI is more like PLE, plagiarism laundering engine. So we need so we need to, I think, have better ideas of what data is being
Yeah.
collected of ours and what is being done with it, whether
Yeah.
it's being used for quote. I mean, this was training too, right? Oh yeah, we're trying to make sure we give you the best interaction. I don't know. Like, how do we know that's true? Like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need it for? I don't know. Like, what are they? What legit things are they learning from it? I mean, I suppose they're learning what people are asking for, but do they need recordings for that?
Right. Right. Yeah. It's all like it's a huge topic because from a legal standpoint, it's difficult to create laws around it because the people who are in charge of creating laws are almost exclusively way below knowledgeable on anything that's going on. And even if you brought people in as experts, it's I'm gonna ask questions as an opportunity to embarrass you or to get a point across or whatever. It's never for understanding. So none of these people have any idea what's going on. You know, you might have a
Right. Yeah.
couple of people that have a tenuous
Well,
grasp because it's how we ended up with the law that prevented Netflix from you being able to say to share from Netflix that you had watched a movie or a TV show because some judge had rented an adult movie at on a cassette at a family rental
yeah.
store one time and it was reported on.
Yeah.
Like,
There's this is a serious problem because now we're coming into time like we could have had we could have had a segment today on like the was it the Senate hearings that they had about AI and all these people who were testifying that AI needs to be regulated, but don't regulate us or whatever.
mm-hmm.
Like the CEO of OpenAI, AI, is an existential threat, needs to be regulated, but you don't need to regulate us. Something like look, this is, I mean, unfortunately, first of all, there's a lot of money involved, people getting donations from various companies
Mm-hmm.
that don't affect their donors. Then there are other people who are very anti the tech companies because they feel like the tech companies should be taking a political stance that they're not, or they don't like the one that they're taking, or whatever it is. So it's a mess, and nobody wants to step up and say like, how are these things actually capable of damaging people's safety, security, livelihood, intellectual property, things like that. So I don't know. I think these things are more likely to be resolved in lawsuits with existing laws than
Yeah.
they are to be the subject of new laws. So like COPA is an existing law that came out like what in 1999 or something.
Something like that.
I remember when it came in, I was working at about.com and we were like, oh, now we have to be careful about who uses the chat rooms or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I think we had chat rooms and we closed the chat rooms when COPA went into effect because they were worried that there
Yeah.
could be people logging in the chat room that were under 13. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, you gotta, I hope that they're held accountable, but $25 million or $6 million is nothing to a company
Yeah.
like Amazon. It would have to be something that was ongoing where they were where they were fined like millions of dollars per violation or
Mm-hmm.
something
Mm-hmm.
crazy that would really, really hit them in the
Yeah.
pocketbook.
Yeah, for sure. This is a minor slap that, I mean, other than the fact that clearly they're being watched internally, and so therefore, you know, uh, things are going to have to change going forward. They're still going to skirt it. They're going to try and ride the line as much as possible and do as much as they're allowed to do. So yeah, like you said, things have to change, and I'm not entirely sure how that happened. Maybe, more tech savvy people need to be involved in the process or something. I don't know. But right now, data does seem to be just open and whatever, and like you said, I don't think it's going to be good for anybody going forward, except the big tech companies. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. We all know that you get free shipping on millions of products with Amazon Prime, but you get a whole lot more. Like free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, plus a whole lot more. We've got links to all of these features and some of our favorites, plus a 30-day free trial, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. So if you've been paying attention, you know that there is a writer's strike going on in Hollywood right now. It has brought a number of productions to a halt. I think Spider-Man is currently halted. A number of shows have stopped production, all because of a writer's strike. Now, it's not the first time that we've had one of these. You might remember in 2007 and 2008, there was a writer's strike. If you need any evidence of how devastating it can be, check out season 2 of Heroes. But the strike of 2007-2008 ended under strange circumstances, not because the Writers Guild got any say in it, but because they were bullied into it by other parts of Hollywood. In particular, the Association of Motion Picture Producers or something like that, AMPTP, Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. They reached an agreement with the studios and bullied the writers into accepting the same deal. This week, it was revealed that the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, will not allow that to happen this time. They're ready. They're in this for the long haul. The last agreement was not even remotely prepared for the environment that we're in today, namely the world of streaming. And the writers have taken significant hits through streaming productions because their agreements aren't great for that, because in 2007-2008 the type of stuff that was on the internet was mostly stuff like little webisodes, a 4-minute add-on to an episode of The Office or whatever, and not Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
A big, huge production that costs more than most movies. So they're in this for the long haul. They have absolutely said that they will not be bullied into a solution. And they said that the AMPTP has already tried to do that this time around. And they absolutely will not allow another guild or union to negotiate against them. So I think the point here is buckle up. The next TV season is going to be rough.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's important. They have to, they're fighting to try and make sure that people can still make a career out of being a television writer.
Right.
Especially would concern me is the dispute over AI stuff. So I think they were asking the contract that no members writing be used for training AIs.
Yeah.
And because they don't want a situation where the AI is being trained to they're helping to train the AI to replace them.
Yeah. Essentially the thing that we're talking about with Google.
Exactly what Google is doing. But we don't have publishers don't have a union against Google.
Right.
I would strongly suggest to publishers though that they do get together and try to use some collective power. There are some associations and things like that, because if you act collectively, you could have leverage, against Google. You could say, look, we can pull our content from Google, and how would you feel about that? Now, that would in effect be very bad news for just like a strike. People don't get paid during a strike. If publishers had a Google strike and decided to, no longer, no longer to block Google bots and to basically block traffic that comes from Google or whatever, serve an ad that served a page that said like Google is trying to harm our business. Here's, read more or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's not my business place to say, but I would think that could become a good idea. But what's happening with the writers is that what's happening with the writers right now is they are fighting an existential threat. So they should not be. I agree with them. They shouldn't be allowing the studio to train AI to replace them.
Yeah.
Like that's not like we don't want that. What a lot of people call, generative AI is really remixing content that has been ingested from real people.
Right.
And maybe those real people don't want their content being used against them. So like I I I get that. I think they have to do that. And then, there's obviously other clauses in there that involve them getting paid a living wage, and so that it's not just a day job,
And
just a
getting
day labor.
and
Yeah.
getting royalties on web-based stuff, on streaming content, which I don't think they're getting right now, like they do through projects on broadcast. Which,
Right.
when you're working on a 4-minute, sketch based on an episode of The Office, that's one thing. But when you're working on something as big as Stranger Things,
There should be
it should be
there
treated
should be
just
no
like broadcasting.
distinction.
Yeah, exactly.
There should be no distinction at this point, right? Like it's the platform where you it first appeared as a platform shouldn't matter, because
Yeah.
we've seen that like you could create stuff for CBS, for what now Paramount Plus,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be shown on CBS on
Mm-hmm.
on television, and you
Yep.
create stuff from television and it has another life in streaming. So now one thing I wonder is if they're going to ask for something regarding all of these takedowns to try to stop the write-offs that are going on,
Yeah.
because that
One
is taking
one and a
money
half billion dollar write down for this quarter from Disney
from.
alone on content.
Exactly. We could have had a segment on that, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some of that will never be seen, apparently never to be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the Willow show uh, will never be seen again.
Yep.
The There was a movie that I read about that sounded kind of interesting, and now I'll never get to see, probably called The Princess, which was sort of like a combination of The Raid and a fairy tale story.
Okay.
So, like, apparently a princess is locked at the top of the tower and she can fight, and she has to fight her way to the bottom and
Hmm.
like to get out or whatever, which is sort of reminiscent of the greatest action movie ever made, The Raid, which is also on Netflix and hasn't been taken down, but they don't own it. So,
It feels, it's interesting because right now this feels like the 40s and 50s in television, right? Where
yeah,
they didn't think about longevity, and so they would tape over the masters of shows.
BBC,
Yeah.
taped over episodes of Doctor Who.
Yep, exactly. And the only reason anything exists is because, somebody dies and their grandkid goes into their house and goes, "What's this?" and hands it over to the BBC and goes, "Hey, is this what we're looking for?" It's a consumer tape, but it's better than it being lost to all eternity. And I think we've talked about it before. I think this kind of thing is going to lead to another increase in piracy, which is also not going to be good for the writers.
Right. I mean, where I'm waiting for the pirated Batgirl, right?
I've been checking the most reliable source that it might show up on regularly.
I mean, I mean, it deserve like I'm sure at this point that the people who are in Batgirl would, although they didn't finish the special effects, right? So I guess there's really nothing to.
I don't
I guess
know.
there's not enough to send it to upload it.
I don't know. Cats didn't finish the special effects, and they put that in theaters. So
Yeah, I suppose so. But like if I were the people who made these movies, I would prefer that they be pirated and people see them than that they not never be seen at all. I mean, not, and I'm not saying I like stuff to be pirated. Like those things should be available, and it really is a lame tax loophole. Like in a way, somebody should be complaining about this as a tax policy. Like you were making money on something, you made it, and now you found that like throwing a product in the garbage is a way to make money feels really contrary to the spirit of tax law. Like I didn't think the idea of tax law was to cause companies that produce a product to throw the product away. Like
yeah,
that seems like a clear abuse of the tax system. But if I were the union, I would also try to have that put into a contract that they can't do that because that's taking money out of the pockets of my union members who are probably getting residual who would get residuals.
very true. I may have just found your movie. Um, and that's
Plus the re-
go ahead.
plus their resume, right? Like their it's that's their resume too, right? Like, oh, if you were the writer on Batgirl, wouldn't you want people to see your work?
Yeah, right. It's it's a fascinating situation. Um, you've spent the time. Sure, you got your advance on the script, but the thing's never produced. Or it is produced and it's never released. You wrote the script on, on spec, on the idea that upon release you would have residuals on it, and that's not going to happen. It's exactly what Scarlett Johansson sued Disney over with Black Widow. As the actor, not the writer, but it's exactly what she sued them over because she did the film on the expectation of residuals from the theater, and it was never released to the theater.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, definitely an
Yeah.
interesting situation.
It's going to go on for a long time. I mean, all indications are at least 3 months. Uh,
Yeah, it's gonna be way longer than that, is my prediction. Um, the one of '07 to '08 went on long enough that the scripted late night shows, like the Daily Show, came back without a script. Because it had gone on so long that Jon Stewart just had to riff for 22 minutes. Um, he wasn't allowed to use a script, but they had to come back because it was burning a hole in the network's pocket.
I mean,
And I suspect this one's going to be longer than the one that sunk Heroes. I'm always going to be salty about that, by the way.
right. I mean, this is true. I think another thing though is like if I don't know, but if you're an actor and you go and you're participating in one of these unscripted things, aren't you kind of crossing a picket line?
Yes. And I remember Jon Stewart talking about it. Talking about that he was there essentially under duress, under different conditions of his on-screen contract as opposed to his writer's contract.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one thing that's going to be really messed up. Apparently, right now they're filming Deadpool 3,
Yeah.
and the actors are not allowed to ad lib
Yep.
because that would be considered writing.
Yep. Which is a fascinating situation considering uh, Ryan Reynolds ad libbing is what made the first two movies work.
Yeah, so that movie could end up being terrible when it might have been good
Yeah.
as a result of this.
Yeah. He's one of those actors that you can't put on screen and say stick to the script. It's like trying to tell Will Ferrell to stick to the script. It's not going to work.
Yep. So I guess we'll see what happens, but it's not good. I mean, I hope it gets resolved soon, but I think they should. I think the writers should stick it out until they get a contract that assures that they are able to keep going as a career
Yeah.
and not have AI. I mean, the AI clause is just one clause in there, but I hope that they're sticklers for that one because that's a really serious future problem that they may
I
not
think it's
realize
a
how serious
necessity.
it is right now.
I think it's a necessity. I think they have to have that in their new contract. I don't honestly, and if anybody's listening, I know there are some WGA members that listen to the show. Some of you have done voices for the show, but you've got to stick this one out because it could be the death of the industry. There's an episode of 30 Rock about it, and 30 Rock ended seemingly 100 years ago. There was an episode of Studio 60 about it, and that ended almost a decade earlier. But yeah, it's a problem. I think that needs to be an absolute requirement of your contract. And I mean, we're with you on this because it's coming for us too. So
Yeah, exactly. So
it's one of the reasons why the show becomes more important than the writing for the Plunkett's brand, because this medium is very different than clickety clacky, and
yeah,
right now it's a little harder to kill us.
Video is a little harder to kill, but we'll see.
Yep, for sure. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We always appreciate it. There was some conversation going on in the chat room tonight. Thank you for that. If you didn't join us live and would like to in the future, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. You can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. Also give us your feelings about the topics of the week. If you're not able to join us live, that's okay as well. Plunketslive.com/subscribe. All of our shows are there and all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we've got a lot of new content coming on the site, on YouTube, and on Facebook, so definitely check that out. There's some stuff going on behind the scenes that we'll keep you abreast of if when we get closer to that time. That's where we'll be for right now. Yeah, lots of stuff going on that we'll reveal over time. But I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao.